Welcome to the Couch GM podcast, part of the Couch Scouts family of podcasts. A GM can't do his job without good scouts, but scouting is only half the battle. I'm your host, Skip Newton. My co-host is Matt Cooper. Matt, you had a nice little vacation last week on the beach, if memory serves. How was that?
It was a working vacation. I do college ministry, and it's spring break for Clemson, or it was last week. And so we took about 65 of our students down to Florida for a week of kind of community building. We did some outreach on the beach, had some worship times in the morning. So I was working, but it was at the beach, and it was nice. So
Nice. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Today we are going to talk about some trades. Most of these, in fact, I think all these are dynasty trades. No Devi ones snuck in, but we reached out to our wonderful people in the Couch Scouts Discord, and wow, did they respond
yeah.
absolutely in spades. So maybe we're going to get 2 podcasts worth of content here. We'll see how this goes, but let's get right into it. But before we do, I do want to get your quick thoughts on the Stephon Diggs 3-year, $69 million nice deal to the Patriots. That was a little bit of a surprise for me. I wasn't surprised that somebody signed him, but I was kind of expecting a 1-year prove it deal.
Yep.
So the 3-year commitment, in interesting, I think, actually.
Yeah. So first of all, shout out to that Couch Scouts Discord. It's completely free and it's hopping all the time. So you should definitely get in there. We'll have the link in the show notes. But yeah, as far as the Diggs signing, that was a surprise to me. I agree with you. Like at his age, coming off a torn ACL, I definitely thought it was going to be a 1-year prove it deal. I mean, it was an ACL for him, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
so yeah, I was surprised. And I think the Patriots, uh, this isn't saying much, but I think even at his age and coming off a torn ACL, he's probably still their best pass catcher. We'll see if they add anything in the draft, but they do not have much there. So I think May is a serviceable quarterback. If they don't add anybody in the draft, Diggs could just be a total target hog. And he could have, a pretty good season from a fantasy perspective, maybe more so than we were thinking. Um, and for May, I guess it can't hurt. I mean, he's not worse than Jalen Polk and whoever else they've got on the roster, Kendrick Bourne. So, yeah, interesting signing there.
Yeah, 31 years old, turns 32 in late November, but he was averaging 8 targets a game for the first 8 games until he got hurt. So, I mean, that's not bad. Like he could absolutely be fantasy relevant. So interesting there. I think if you have Diggs on your roster, now might be a really nice time to try and just float him out there to see
Mm-hmm.
what you might be able to get for him, because hey,
Yeah.
you never know.
Literally just a few days ago, I mean, I was in trade discussions with my friend Joe Leary, and he's had inherited an orphan roster, aging, was trying to sell off the vets, and he was like, "Hey, if I add Stephon Diggs to this trade, does that do anything to change, to move the needle for you?" And I was like, "No, not really, to be honest." Uh, so yeah, that probably is a little different now. Now that there's a concrete landing spot, I think, he goes from borderline worth less to at least worth something.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I picked up an orphan in a league, and it was one of those leagues that does dispersals. So they put all of the orphaned assets into a dispersal pool, and then anybody else in the league that wants to do a second chance can throw
Hmm.
their team in and start over. And Diggs was one of the players available, and I got him for $1. Like, nobody outbid me. I was a little surprised, but this was a couple weeks ago, and so when he signed, I'm like, hey, that $1 investment looks like that might pay off
Yeah,
for me. So
for sure.
kind of nice there. But let's get into the trades. I do want to ask one question, because I was trying to negotiate something in this exact same league where I'm a little bit quarterback shy. JJ McCarthy, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. First of all, I'm assuming you have JSN, even in a Superflex league, worth more. That's question number one. And then question number two, what would you need to balance these two players out?
Worth more than JJ McCarthy. Yeah, I don't have dynasty rankings in front of me. I would assume JSN would be a little higher. But I like JJ McCarthy, honestly. I like him quite a bit. I came on to him a little bit later in the process, scouting the tape, hearing all the buzz, like, okay, maybe he's not just this game manager that we thought, because they didn't ask him to do a lot at Michigan. But if Sam Darnold can look good in that KOC offense, then I think just about anybody could. He's got a little bit of rushing upside too. He's got great weapons around him. Obviously they moved on from Darnold, so it seems pretty clearly like JJ McCarthy is their guy. So I think when he gets on the field and he starts producing, that value is going to go up. Like
Okay.
he's an ascending asset to me. JSN, obviously he could go up. They got rid of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So there's a chance, obviously he should see all the targets he can handle, and he had a little bit of a breakout last year. So he's a good player, and JJ McCarthy is too. In a super flex league, I feel like it's pretty close, honestly.
Yeah, I was the guy that I have JSN, and I'm looking to get a quarterback, and a guy is throwing out his roster because he is quarterback heavy, and JJ McCarthy is one of those available players. And I was hoping, okay, if I could maybe get something on top of JJ McCarthy, I don't know what that would be. I'm thinking in a non auction, this is an auction league, so the draft picks equal auction dollars. But I was thinking in a non-auction league, like a second round pick might be enough on top to go for it. But
for what it's worth, I just looked up Dynasty Data Labs startup ADP. Jackson Smith and Jigba is 29th overall. JJ McCarthy is 48th overall. So there is a gap of more than a round between them in startup ADP, and I would guess if I go to the trade calculator on Keep Trade Cut, which again I'm not a huge trade calculator guy. Definitely not in favor of throwing screenshots in people's face and saying, "See, look, it's fair. I told you."
yeah,
But
right.
I think it's a good, if you're trying to go in and figure out is this a reasonable starting point? What does the consensus think about this player? It's a good place to start. And so they have it as slightly higher on the JSN side. What they say would even the trade out, according to Keep Trade Cut, would be Stephon Diggs, Tank Bigsby, Ramondre Stevenson, Aaron Jones, or Tony Pollard. Somewhere in that range would even it out, in addition to JJ McCarthy, to get
Okay.
JSN. So that's less than a second. That's less than a second,
probably.
right? I mean,
Probably it's kind of in that late second, early third, depending on which one of those guys you like. But right, yeah, it's okay. I just wanted to get that out there in case people were curious about a young stud wide receiver, and hopefully for those of us that are purple faithful, a young stud
I
quarterback.
actually just made a trade involving JJ McCarthy last week. So this is a team that I've been rebuilding for a couple of years, and I've got a great talent pool of young dynasty assets, dynasty players, and I'm ready to flip the script and become a contender. And this guy that's in my league, kind of a little bit aging team, maybe trying to blow it up a little bit. He throws Trey McBride on the trade block, and so we started interacting. And over the course of couple days. Ended up coming to a deal. I sent him JJ McCarthy, my 2026 first, and my 2027 second for basically Trey McBride and a third in
Okay.
2026. So, yeah, I mean, this was a little bit of an all-in move. It's a tight end premium. It's a 10-team league, so having studs matters. And I didn't have a tight end. And at quarterback, I had Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, and Justin Fields. So I could afford to give away or to trade away JJ McCarthy. So yeah, I ended up pulling the trigger on that with my friend Steve. Ended up getting a Trey McBride share. Hopefully going into contender mode on that roster. What do you think of that deal, Skip?
I mean, you definitely paid top value. I think he did a nice job maximizing the Trey McBride value. I mean, to get,
For sure.
you said it was a first next year, and was it a second
Mm-hmm.
the year after, plus JJ McCarthy, who we both love. So yeah, that's interesting. But I think, in, like you said, in a 10-team league, you want more studs. The
Mm-hmm.
depth isn't as crucial because there's just
Yep.
fewer starters going around. So yeah,
Quarterback is a little less scarce in 10 teams, so not quite
exactly.
as
Yeah, I
valuable.
mean, yep, that makes a difference too. So yeah, and in tight end premium, McBride, I mean, he gets so many targets, it's absolutely insane.
Yep. And we got a lot of other trades to get to, so we're not going to spend all night talking about mine. But I will say I made a follow-up trade in that same league where I sent Xavier Worthy and rookie pick 209 for Kyron Williams, Devontae Adams, and Tajay Spears.
Oh,
So that
that's
added
slam
to,
dunk.
like, it's like, okay, I definitely am moving into contender mode. I'm adding some depth to my roster, some veteran talent. I was sad to part with Xavier Worthy because I love him, and you look at what he did down the stretch last year, and you're like, man, if that continues, I'm going to look like an idiot for making this trade. But uh, yeah, I felt like it was something that I had to do, especially after making that all-in move to go get Trey McBride. I want that 26 first that I gave up to be a late pick. So
Yeah, and if Devontae Adams, I mean, I love Kyron Williams, but if Devontae Adams keeps getting 140 plus targets, which he very well could with the Rams, I mean, that's a great play. I like that. You've added some guys that are going to score some points. So
mhm.
well done there. Let's talk about the first one from the Discord, from user Constant, and I didn't see any context as far as how many teams, Superflex or no, so we'll just kind of have to go with it. But AJ Brown on one side for Jalen Coker, a 26 first, a 26 second, and a 27 first. So Coker, 2 firsts and a second. Let's start with, where are you? And I know we've talked about it before, but remind the listeners, where are you on Jalen Coker as a Panthers guy?
Uh, if he becomes something, I would consider it a pleasant surprise. I just think, obviously last year they're totally devoid of talent. They wasted a first round pick on Xavier Legette. Sorry, not sorry. Um, Thielen was hurt. They traded away Deontay Johnson, and so this guy comes in and he does a little bit of something. But I'm not putting a lot of stock in him from a dynasty perspective. Um, I think he belongs in the NFL, but I don't think he's going to be a consistent fantasy producer. So, it's just funny when you read the trade and it's AJ Brown for Jalen Coker, and that's like the first piece that you read. I'm like, ugh. But then you get to the rest of the deal, and 2 firsts and a second for AJ Brown at this point in his career, I think is fine whether Coker's in the deal or not. I think that's, if you're rebuilding and you're trying to get out, um, that's a good return. 2 firsts and a second. You can't really expect to get much more for AJ Brown than that at this stage of his career. What is he, 29?
He turns 28 this summer,
Okay, so
but
he's a little younger than I was picturing in my head, but
the really weird thing and I'm sure it's because of just how Philadelphia, they changed their offense last year. He had fewer than 100 targets in the first. This is in a 17 game sample because the I'm looking on MFL and they're not showing week 18 because week 18 doesn't matter for fantasy football. But
Mhm.
I mean, 97 targets in a fantasy season is really low. I mean, that's his second
Right.
lowest of his career.
He was pretty touchdown dependent. Obviously, Devontae Smith not going anywhere. Yeah, he's
And
not in
so,
a position to be a consistent week to week guy.
right. And I guess I feel like he'll probably have a little bit of a bounce back, a comeback to what he usually does. I mean, he had 158 and 145 the 2 seasons before, but it was a significant decrease in his production. So, like you said, I agree. I mean, if you're looking to get out, you're probably trading where he's maybe at his highest. Of course, if he comes in this year and just starts going absolutely bonkers, then his value will go up because as soon as guys start scoring points, then their
Right.
value goes up. But yeah, getting 2 firsts and a second, I I would have loved one of those firsts to be this year, but
Yeah.
I get it. I mean,
But
you're getting
I
also
love acquiring all the 27 firsts that I can
yes.
acquire because that class looks incredibly loaded.
Yes, and that is something that we're gonna have to dive into at some point is getting
Mhm.
into the 26 class and the 27 class because I think that'll provide a lot of value, but we'll just tease that for now. So we're both on the picks and Jalen Coker side here. Um, from Guazon, 14 team Superflex PPR tight end premium start to tight end,
Mhm.
which I am in 3 leagues with that setting
Yeah.
and 2 of them, this might be my last year because that is a really difficult setting to play. If
Mm.
you are a lover of tight ends and you want to go for that kind of thing, absolutely have fun with it. I'm telling you, it overvalues the position to a
Yeah.
point where it's just crazy. You can't
Yeah.
you can't trade for them. You don't dare trade one away. It's nuts. But anyway, moving
So
on
in
to the
light of that, I'm
yeah.
curious to hear what you say about this trade. I do not play in any such leagues, but I can do math. I know that there's not that many relevant tight ends, and so if you're in 14 team league, you got to start 2 tight ends. There's definitely not 28
No.
fantasy relevant tight ends. If you've got, a top 5 guy at the position arguably, that, you know, might be worth
It's
Fields in the 26 first all by himself. Forget Josh Jacobs. So this seems to me like it's a smash on the Mark Andrews, Josh Jacobs side.
Yeah, Mark Andrews and Josh Jacobs for Justin Fields and a 26 first. It because of those settings, Mark Andrews is absolutely the most valuable asset here. It's crazy. When I was talking about, I was in 3 leagues and 2 I might be done with. The third one is a full IDP.
Oof.
So there's a lot of other players in your lineup. That really mitigates the impact of having to start 2 tight ends. So which is why that
hmm
one's not one that I'm considering leaving. But anyway, back to this. Yeah, it really does overvalue tight ends, and so you can't afford to trade a Mark Andrews unless you're getting back premium value. And
Right.
I would say premium value is 2 firsts, and they got one next year, which is good. But Justin Fields is kind of on that border. Now, this again, it's 14 team super flex, so that makes Justin Fields a little more valuable. But we
hmm
don't know where he's going. But I can see the logic there. But we're not even discussing the fact that on the Mark Andrews side is a stud running back in Josh Jacobs, and I don't think he's going anywhere. I mean, he's got 3
Yeah.
more years on that Green Bay contract. He was exactly what they were looking for. Did everything they wanted. I mean, he was a beast. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm on the Andrews Jacobs side here.
Yep, I agree with you. I mean, Justin Fields, obviously we know he landed with the Jets and we expect him to probably produce from a fantasy perspective because of the rushing like he always does when he's on the field. But it wasn't like a super long term. If I'm not mistaken, it was like a 2-year contract, but they could get out of it after the first year, something along those lines. So again, like if Justin Fields doesn't end up being a long-term starting quarterback, he gets killed on this deal. So, I mean, he already kind of is getting killed on this deal.
Right.
But you add in if Justin Fields is a 1-year rental kind of guy, like, which is a real possibility. Yeah, I'm heavy on the Mark Andrews, Josh Jacobs side of that trade.
Yeah, and with the state of the contracts and the salary cap and the way all those, special rules work, whenever I hear the length of the contract, I just divide it in half. And that's what they're
Right.
actually committed to. It's like, okay, they signed a 4-year deal. It's really 2 years.
Yep.
Anything after 2 years, it all depends on how the player's doing. But all right, Guazon again, 12-team Superflex. This is a much simpler one. Chris Olave straight up for the rookie 112.
Yeah, we discussed this one in the Discord a little bit, and I think it's close. Like, if you're panicky about the concussions and stuff, like, I could see just wanting to get out and get any first for him. But I kind of lean towards Olave here. I think, the upside, if he ends up healthy, the way that he's produced in his career from a fantasy perspective, and he's young, um, I think he's a much better player than what you're likely to get at the rookie 112.
Yep, absolutely. And one of my rules of thumb when I'm trying to evaluate the value of a draft pick is, especially now that that we're in rookie season, is just start assigning a name.
Yep.
Look at some ADP. Who are the players that are available, around 111, 112, 201, and ask yourself, would you give up Olave straight up for one of those guys? And then,
Hmm.
that can help make that determination for you. We're going to get to a few more in just a bit, but you've talked about the value of the Discord, which is outstanding. People also need to know that there is much more to the Couch Scouts family than just the Discord. There is the league winning analysis and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Rookie content, of course, is our bread and butter. We release bonus podcasts every week in addition to the weekly uh, prospect broadcast, which I absolutely love. You're breaking down some of the biggest sleeper names you need to know. We've already released volume 1 of our rookie guide. The 2025 Couch Scouts rookie guide was available earlier this month. So that one, almost 40 rookie strong. There will be more than 70 by the time that one is done. You've got in-depth film analysis, grades, pre and post-draft rankings as well. The ultimate cheat sheet for dominating your rookie draft, and that is coming up in just over a month. So you got to get in now. You can get access to all this for just $5 a month, or save 15% with an annual subscription. And we're still doing an awesome promo. The code RGV1, so Rookie Guide Volume 1, RGV1, will get you 40% off our annual packages. This is available for the first 50 people who take advantage of that awesome deal. All right, back to trades. We're going to the return of JM. I was trying to decide what maybe made up that. As soon as I heard the return of, I was thinking of Return of the Jedi because I'm a Star Wars geek. But anyway, 10-team
Jedi
Superflex.
Master.
Yeah, right?
JM,
Ooh,
Jedi Master.
could be.
Maybe. We'll have to ask
10-team
him.
Superflex. Superflex PPR. Another Olave one. Ramondre Stevenson and Chris Olave for the rookie 103.
Give me the rookie 103 pretty easily.
Yes.
I mean, it's a 10-team league, so you need studs. And I think Chris Olave borderlines on that for sure when he's healthy. But there's so much risk with Ramondre. I mean, he was doghoused and not seeing any touches by the end of last year. I know he's got an extension, but it wasn't even this current coaching staff that gave him that extension, right? And yeah, I don't know. Anything I get from Ramondre moving forward, I'm just considering it a bonus. I have pretty low expectations there. And then Chris Olave, good player, but the 103 is just probably going to be such a slam dunk um, prospect that can be a really high end fantasy producer. That's pretty easily rookie 103 for me.
Yeah, I mean you're guaranteed either the wide receiver 1, the tight end 1, the RB2, or the QB1. I mean, one of those is going to fall to you. So
Yep.
you're in a great spot. You might have your tiers set up where it's a bigger group. You could even trade down, get some more value. So yeah, I'm going with the rookie
And
103 there as
you
well.
eliminate the concussion risk. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. All right, a Lino 101, Aaron Jones and a 26 second for CMC. So a
I'm
couple
on.
of
Go
older
ahead.
running backs here.
Yeah, it is interesting. Normally it's like a contender rebuild type of situation, and so you don't see that. But give me CMC here. I
Same.
think he's such a good player when he's healthy, and I know that like it's a when he's healthy thing, but CMC is one of those interesting players where like he missed a couple years early in his career, so he got this like injury prone tag on him, and then he had like multiple healthy years in a row where he was just a straight up cheat code for fantasy. And then he gets hurt again, and everybody immediately throws his value back in the tank. Oh, he's injury prone. Um, but when he's on the field, he's probably going to produce what, twice as many fantasy points per game as Aaron Jones, maybe three times as many. Um, Jones looked a little bit washed. Obviously, they bring in Mason from San Francisco for probably not just handcuff work, but really to put him in a committee. On the flip side, CMC, they got rid of Mason and Elijah Mitchell. So that shows me that they have a lot of confidence that McCaffrey's healthy and is going to come back and be the guy for them again. So I don't know. They're both old, so I don't know how much longer either of them has, but for probably the next 2 years, I would guess CMC is going to be a league winning player. So
He
yeah,
has that ceiling, and that's why I'm on the CMC side as well. I mean, last year Aaron Jones had one of the best years statistically of his career. I mean, career high in rushing attempts, career high in rushing yards. He had a handful of touchdowns, but still caught 51 passes, had over 400 yards receiving with a couple score. I mean, really good stats. That's Aaron Jones' ceiling right there. If he does that again, I will be absolutely impressed and very surprised, even as a Vikings fan and as a fan of Aaron Jones. He helped the
yeah, I
offense.
like him.
That said, if CMC comes back and he's healthy, I mean, he's got 80 plus reception potential. I mean, that's kind of what he does.
Yeah,
And he's got he scores more touchdowns. He's going to get more rushing yards. I mean, his ceiling is like you said. I mean, he could literally win your league. He could go off and have near 2,000 combined yards and score a dozen or so touchdowns. Yeah, that's one where if if I'm not trading CMC to get younger and reset, then I don't want I don't want another older running back unless I'm
yeah,
going to get a lot more on top. It's like, well, no, I'm gonna just stick with
yeah.
the
Like
guy
I'm
that I
gonna
think
give
has a higher ceiling.
what could be a late 26 second in a bad, what most people think is a bad draft class, um, to make a significant downgrade at running back from a production standpoint. They're both old, so production's all you really care about. Significant downgrade, and all I'm getting for it is a 26 second. Like that just doesn't do much for me. So I agree with you. I mean, Aaron Jones, you said last year was like his ceiling. He was RB20 on a per game basis. So if that's his ceiling, like low end RB2, and it's probably worse than that. Give me the guy that might get 25 plus fantasy points a game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. All right, we've got either Crawl or CRALL 925 12-team Superflex PPR. Another straight up one pick for player rookie 112. So the rookie 112 again. This time for Travis Etienne.
Yeah, give me the rookie 112.
Same. Yeah,
Um,
that's.
I've been doing a lot of talking. You care to elaborate on that?
I'm just really struggling with Etienne. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like he peaked and then he's gone down, and maybe I've had too much recency bias on him, and he's not nearly as as bad as what I'm thinking. I mean, he's yeah, he just it was such a bad year last year after a couple of 1,000-yard seasons his first 2 years. But I think that second season where everyone got excited about him, I mean, it was touchdown heavy. I mean, 11 rushing touchdowns, and I don't think he can do that again. I feel like Jacksonville isn't necessarily super committed to him long term, and
Agreed.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
I just there's something about him. I'm like, he doesn't seem like he's the guy.
he's a
And
huge
if
fade
I
for
can get
me.
a if I can get a first round pick for him, I'm totally fine moving on. Yep.
Yeah, so this is a this is a smash on the 112 side for me. First of all, in those same per game ranks that I was just looking up Aaron Jones, I had to scroll a ways before I found Travis Etienne. He was RB 41 on a per game basis last year. And honestly, most of that production came towards the beginning of the season. And,
Yep.
Tank Bigsby began to outplay him, eat into his workload, uh, from week 8 or 9 on. Let's see, he had 2 games where he broke double digits in fantasy points, and he was healthy for that whole stretch. So he was not usable, not startable. Now they bring in a new coaching staff. I mean, they're what, three coaching staffs removed from the regime that actually spent a first round pick on ETN. Um, he doesn't have much time left on his contract. Even if you go into keep trade cut and look at consensus, they're saying that ETN's valued around the rookie pick 208. So to get 112 for him is a total smash for me.
Yep. I agree. All right. The rest of the show, we have just a bunch of trades from RW40. Call out, buddy. Man, you answered the call and then some. This is fantastic. We'll get through at least a couple of these. We'll see how this goes because some of these are quite large. The first one, and I did not catch the context. I apologize for that. But we got Drake London, Blake Corum, and the 301 for Nico Collins and the 204.
Yeah, I lean towards the Collins side. This was one of the tougher ones for me when I saw it on the show sheet to figure out which side I would want. Even though I think for most people, Nico and Drake London are pretty much in the same tier and, very close in value. I just the age difference. And I really believe in London's talent. He showed some great chemistry with Penix towards the end of the year. So, but they're close enough to where the difference between 204 and 301, um, like I think you can get a really good player at rookie 204. 301's a dart throw. So for me, Blake Corum's a non-factor. I don't care about him in this deal. So I'm just viewing it as, would I tear down from London to Nico Collins to move up from 301 to 204? And I think the answer is yes, I would.
Yep, I would as well. Nico before that late the later part of the beginning of the season when he got hurt was absolutely crushing, and getting double digit targets. He was an alpha out there and looked the part and started to get back to that when he finally came back and got healthy. And I think he's clearly Stroud's number one guy. I mean, there's no more Diggs. Tank Dell is hurt. I wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
surprised if they added somebody, but I love Nico. London's very good. I mean, he's probably going to get you wide receiver one numbers, I would assume. But Penix. I mean, if I have to choose between a guy who's throwing my wide receiver the ball, I'm going to take Stroud over Penix for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm also I'm also moving up in the draft. Again, you spoke to the age difference. It's a 3-year age difference, so that's why Drake London probably has some more value for the person that traded for him. Blake Corum's a throw-in. I mean, that's a hey, if the Rams don't draft a running back and Kyren Williams gets hurt, Blake Corum might score some points.
Mm-hmm.
But those things need to be in place, I think. And man, it's really hard to trust the running back depth right now before the draft because this draft is so
It's such
running
a
back
loaded class. Yeah.
heavy. I mean, I'm typically in a normal year, the draft will be taking place, and as soon as a guy gets drafted, let's say he gets, fourth round draft capital or fifth round, people will immediately, even third round, people will immediately say, "Oh, that's it for the starter, stock down." I'm like, hold on a minute. If the starter is a guy that's an absolute established, very good NFL player, that draft pick doesn't mean that it's stock down for the starter. It means, especially at running back, that team felt they needed depth because that's what you need at running back in the NFL. They get hurt all the time. And so normally I'm the guy, again, on draft day where I'm like, okay, settle down. Just because Blake Corum got drafted in whatever round of his third round last year, or whatever, doesn't mean Kyren Williams is all of a sudden in the tank. And that is exactly what happened. Kyren Williams was a stud again. This year
Mm-hmm.
might be a little different. Like if the Rams take a running back in the fourth round, I might be, well, that's not bad necessarily for Kyren Williams, but this could mean really bad things for Blake Corum, just as an example. So that's because man, it's a deep running back class.
It
That is going to
is.
be, from a fantasy perspective, in my opinion, the most intriguing and fun thing to watch as it plays itself out on all 3 days is
Yeah.
what prospects go in, not only in which order, but which teams. And that could be a lot of
Yep.
fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to change the running back landscape for fantasy for sure, this draft class. So will be interesting to watch. Let's do one more
Yep.
trade.
Let's do one more. We can save these for later. Like I said, we'll do another trade episode. We might even do one soon. Maybe we'll do back to back, but let's get into the last one again. Also from RW40. Thank you so much. 12 team Superflex half point PPR tight end premium. The 101 and the 201 for CJ Stroud and Jonathan Taylor.
Give me Stroud and Taylor. Do you agree with that first before I get into my
slam dunk? Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, in a Superflex league, I mean, Stroud is more valuable than any quarterback in this draft. So really any draft
Mhm.
pick. And Jonathan Taylor, I know we've discussed this previously. I mean, he was an absolute league-winning beast at the end of the season last year. I think he's worth a first-round pick still. So you're talking
Mhm. More probably.
two
Yeah.
firsts plus at least for these two players. I think this shows, man, people are down on Stroud.
They
It has to
are.
be.
That was going to be my comment, was that it's interesting because you're talking about a guy that a year ago was the third overall player in startup drafts. I mean, people were so in on CJ Stroud after his rookie season, and there were definitely some voices going, "Wait a minute, he doesn't have any rushing upside. Third overall is a little bit bullish. Like he's probably a low end QB1 for his whole career." Um, and a lot of people were saying, "Yeah, but if you give me a low end QB1 for 15 years, like I like that, you know." And then this year, he finished as QB 31 on a per game basis. It was very disappointing, and obviously people are understandably concerned. But I will say, if you look at the first 6 weeks before he lost Diggs and Dell, and he had kind of that full complement of weapons, he was QB 10, and that offense fell apart. Everything kind of went into a tailspin.
Well, Collins got hurt too, right? I mean, it was bad.
Yeah. Collins missed some time too. So yeah, I mean, it was a train wreck for the whole offense, and I'm not trying to excuse all that away, but to go from he's the third overall startup player to, I guess we're just assuming that he's like a career QB2 now for fantasy, feels like a drastic overcorrection for the market. And Yeah, I like Stroud a lot. I think he in 101, it's close, but a super flex league, I'm gonna lean towards the quarterback over the running back. It's also like you got to hit on both of those picks as opposed to Jonathan Taylor and Stroud, like you know what you're getting. So if you
Right.
miss on 201, then it's just Genty for Stroud and Jonathan Taylor, which would be a really bad trade. So for me, I'm rolling with the players there.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. I agree. It's just not enough for two players, and they're not even that old. I mean, Stroud's just third year. Jonathan Taylor's still got, I think, a few
Yeah,
years
what's he
left
like
too. So
26 maybe?
yeah, I'd have to look it up quick. But right, that was just, I thought that was a little crazy when I saw this. I'm like, man, was this like just an offer somebody threw out there and it wasn't an actual trade? You never know. Like people are just throwing stuff out, but boy,
Mhm.
that's a
Yeah.
little nuts. Jonathan Taylor is, yeah, 26, just turned in January. So
Yeah.
26 for the
So
season
like
coming up.
I'm looking at startup ADP and 2025 rookie 101 Genty basically is the 21st startup pick, and then Stroud is 26th. So he's just a few picks behind the 101 in a startup draft. Um, so if you call that a wash, which I would, maybe even slight lean towards Stroud, but then you're talking about 201 for Taylor, and that's easily Jonathan Taylor. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean he had 14 over 1,400 rushing yards and 11 rushing touchdowns last year. Man, guy's good. He's a good ball player. I don't know why people are. I don't know. Maybe the 2 years before, a couple of sub 1,000 yard seasons. I think some injuries
Yeah,
were in there,
some
but
frustrating injuries. Yeah. He has
yep.
been frustrating to own at times, but still over 201 pretty easily.
E Exactly. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. As I mentioned, we'll probably do some more trades, maybe even next week. Mix some in addition to whatever we come back at you with. Thank you again for listening to this Couch GM podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you leave us a 5-star review and be sure to check the show notes to join our free community Discord. It is always hopping with trade advice, news reactions, and so much more. We will be back next week. Everyone have a fantastic weekend. Take care, y'all.